Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another Tumbler tutorial. If it's your first time here, hi, my name is Mal and I am the owner and maker of Made by Manny and Mal. In today's video, we're going to be making a tumbler design using 2 of the sheets of vinyl and a decal from my collaboration with the Vinyl Cottage. If you missed it, I did a collab box with the Vinyl Cottage and you guys really loved it. It sold out very quickly, but I have good news. Everything is available individually on the Vinyl Cottage website now. So if you liked any of the patterns from this collab or the decals, you can buy them one by one on the website. I'll have the website linked down below in the description box for you, along with a discount code if you want to check those out. And I'm really excited about this tumbler design. I really hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any of my new videos. And let me know what you think down below in the comments. Make sure you check out the description box for a full supply list, discount codes, links to all of my social media pages, a link to join my Facebook group, and a link to sign up for my exclusive mentorship group, MBMM Elite. If you've got a tax return that you are itching to spend, you can join my elite group and gain access to a whole bunch of benefits, including exclusive tutorials, small business advice. We're just getting into a lot of digital design tutorials and things like that. So if you want to get in on any of that fun, you can go to madebymannyandmal.com/MBMM Elite and join the elite fam. Okay, I think that's it. I really hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's go. We're going to jump right into this tutorial with a glittered and epoxy tumbler that's ready to go. So I took a 30-ounce modern tumbler from Craft Haven, base painted it with white spray paint, and then I went right into a coat of epoxy. In that coat of epoxy, I added in a little bit of Nookie from Peachy Olive Glitters. So I had about 25 to 30 milliliters of epoxy, and then I added just enough glitter to ensure that I would get really good coverage on my cup, but not so much glitter that it would give us a rough texture, because right after that coat, we're going to go in and do all of our vinyl work. So for the design here, I'm using 2 sheets from my collab with the Vinyl Cottage, like I said. So we're going to use the Retro Summer Bus print and then the Pastel Watercolor Transparent print. We're going to start by wrapping half of our tumbler with the Retro Summer vinyl. And obviously to do that, we need to first split our cup in half vertically. So I'm going to start by laying a piece of tape vertically up the tumbler. It doesn't matter where you start this, but this is going to just kind of help me when I go to figure out where the other half goes. So once I've got that piece of tape down, I'm going to take my measuring tape and wrap it around the bottom of my tumbler. And I'm going to see what the total circumference around my cup is. So it's 9.5 inches wide on this cup, and I'm just going to divide that by 2. So that's going to give us 4 3/4 inches wide. So when we go to place our tape and measure from the bottom, each half of our tumbler should be 4.75, so 4 3/4 inches in width. So I'm going to take my measuring tape, and starting at the line where I put my tape down, my first tape line, I'm going to measure 4 3/4 inches from that starting point, make a little mark on my tumbler, and that's where I'm going to place my second line of tape. Now, of course, getting these straight is very important. I just eyeball it on curved tumblers. It's really hard to tell, or use a tool to get things straight. So I just eyeball it, make sure that it looks straight. To my eye, always takes a little bit of readjusting and finagling. But once I've got my tape laid down, I'm going to measure each half again from both the bottom rim of the tumbler and the top rim. I want to make sure that the top rims are even, because that'll be a pretty good indicator that our tape lines are straight. Now that we've got our tape placed down, we can go in to apply our vinyl. Now, I am going to just preface this by saying that this is very difficult and it is not for the faint of heart, but it can be done. So we are going to use our tried and true felt edge squeegee along with a heat gun. The heat gun, I think, is the most important part in this process to help us apply this vinyl on this tumbler as flawlessly as we can. So first I'm going to cut down my vinyl so that we have a smaller piece to work with. I think it's a lot more difficult when you're working with a full like 12 by 12 sheet. So I'm going to cut this down as small as I can, making sure that I have enough vinyl obviously to cover the entire half of my tumbler, but the smaller the piece, the easier it will be to work with. Now with a normal vinyl wrap on a straight tumbler, I would start at one end, I would line up the edge of my vinyl with the edge of my tape as you can see there, and I would just smooth the vinyl onto the cup very easily. But with a curved tumbler, we're going to use a bit of a different technique. I'm actually going to start from the middle of the vinyl, and we're going to work our way out one side and then work our way out the other side. So what I'm going to do here is peel up half of this backing from the vinyl, and I'm going to use my X-Acto knife to cut the backing in half. I don't want to cut the vinyl in half, I just want to cut the backing in half. So I'm going to cut that, and then I'm going to put the vinyl back onto the backing. And what we're going to do is, just like we would on like a regular edge of a vinyl wrap, is peel up a little bit of the backing from one of those middle sections and use that as the anchor to keep our vinyl in place as we apply it to the tumbler. I would recommend not making this middle section too large. You want to obviously avoid as many wrinkles and bubbles as you can. So once I've got that little strip of vinyl applied to the middle of my cup, I'm going to start working my way out to one side. It doesn't matter what side you start with, but I'm really going to rely very heavily on my heat gun here to help me just improve the elasticity of this vinyl. Now, Vinyl Cottage vinyl is already very stretchy and pliable, but using your heat gun will just help it a little bit more move and curve around those surfaces. Just be careful that you don't make your vinyl too hot. You don't want to ruin it, but you do want to make it a little bit more flexible. It's also really important to take this process slowly, take your time, be patient, work in really small sections. Like I said, this is not for the faint of heart. This is very stressful and a difficult thing to do. So take your time and really just be patient with the whole process. I think it took me like 25 to 30 minutes to get this vinyl wrapped on this half of the tumbler, and usually with a straight tumbler I can apply vinyl in probably like 30 seconds, so it is a much longer process, much more difficult, so just take your time. So once I've got a section of the vinyl applied to the middle, I'm going to actually remove the rest of the backing so that I can just work with it a little bit more easily. So I'm just going to go through with my heat gun in little sections, applying that, making sure it's smooth, and then I'll move on to the next section. I'm going to push out as many wrinkles and bubbles as I can with my squeegee tool, but as you'll see a little bit later, I will have a lot to go in and kind of pop and remove the air from with my craft knife later, but that's okay. You won't really be able to tell once it's under epoxy, and I'm going to show you a little trick later on in the video. If you have any spots that you need to cover up, we will deal with them a little bit later. I think this goes without saying, but I would definitely not recommend that you use this technique with a print like a plaid or a stripe pattern. Anything that has really like precise lines, I would not recommend using this technique for, because you're going to warp your vinyl a little bit, move it around, and it'll be really difficult to keep those lines looking straight and like they're applied correctly. So I would stick to more free patterns, maybe something a little more whimsical, or something like this that has a lot of background space that you can work with. I wouldn't do any of the like geometric or, precise patterns. Hopefully that makes sense. So once I had the vinyl applied to one half of my half, I'm going to move to the next half and repeat that exact same process. Once I've got the vinyl on, I'm going to go through with my craft knife and either poke holes or cut little slits anywhere in the vinyl that is lifted or wrinkled or has any bubbles, and I'm going to try to remove that air and smooth those out the best I can. And then I'm going to move up to the top rim, cut off the excess the same way I always do with my vinyl wraps, and then we'll move down to the bottom and cut off the excess vinyl down there as well. All right, so here's the first half all wrapped. Definitely not perfect, but that's okay. We are going to try and fix it later down the road, make it look as perfect as possible. So now that I've got this vinyl on, I'm going to take my same painter's tape and wrap it on those edges of the vinyl. Don't worry about the bottom. We're going to finish that a little differently. I know I wrapped the bottom around the bottom rim, but we're going to finish the bottom just with glitter later. So don't worry about that either. If you just want to trim it off with your edge trimmer or whatever, that's totally fine. So now moving into the other side of the tumbler, we're going to take this transparent watercolor vinyl, and I took a whole bunch of these little doodle daisies that I made. I'll put these in my Facebook group, MBMM Makers Community, for free, so you can download them and use them if you want. And I just cut a bunch of those little flowers out of the vinyl in a bunch of different sizes. And what we're going to do is place them all over this glittered half of our tumbler. I'm going to take the decal I'm going to use. This is a hand lettered decal by me. It says, "Hey, good vibes, stay a while." I thought it was a cute little summer quote. So I'm going to keep the backing on the vinyl or the decal just for the beginning. Before I apply it, I wanted to see if the flowers would look good. I had imagined it in my head and I could see it, but I wanted to test out a few and make sure that my vision was actually going to work. So I didn't want to put the decal on just yet. But once I had a few flowers on there, I was liking how it was looking and I was ready to go for it. So I'm going to take the decal off my tumbler and I'm actually going to cut it into 2 pieces because we're applying it to a curved surface. I didn't want to have to worry about any parts of it wrinkling or not being smooth around those curves. So I'm going to cut the "Stay a While" into its own piece and we'll just apply them that way. I'm also going to cut around as closely as I can. I'm going to cut all of the excess clear area around. That'll make it easier to apply to this curved tumbler as well. So starting with the "Hey Good Vibes" portion, I'm going to put a piece of tape at the bottom of the decal so that I can measure each end and make sure that we are perfectly centered in this half of the cup. And then I'll apply a piece of tape to one side and apply the decal using the hinge method, the same way I do with all of these decals. And then for the "Stay a While" portion, I'm going to put that right underneath the "Hey Good Vibes." So it's going to end up looking the same as it would if we hadn't cut it into 2 pieces, but cutting it into 2 halves and applying it this way, you just decrease the risk of having to deal with wrinkling or anything around that curved area of the cup. So once I've got the decal on and ready, I'm going to move into the rest of my florals. I'm just going to try to fill up as much of this half of the tumbler with these watercolor florals, and you can see they're very subtle but also very pretty. The color shows up really well on the glitter, but they're not like too overwhelming, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to place these by hand one by one and try to fill up as much space as possible. After all of my flowers have been applied, I'm going to put my cup on my turner and I'm going to seal all of this vinyl with a coat of polyacrylic. And while the polyacrylic is still wet, I'm going to take some glitter. I'm going to use Galadriel from Peachy Olive Glitters, and I'm going to tap my finger into the glitter and then tap that onto any of these spots in the vinyl that might have wrinkles or bubbles or anything like that. You can do this where there aren't any wrinkles or bubbles also. It's going to add a little bit of camouflage to those areas, but also add a little bit of extra sparkle. I learned this technique from my friend Rachel at Mitten Made Craft, and now I am absolutely addicted to doing it. It really helps camouflage any of those areas in your vinyl that aren't perfect, and you guys know I love extra glitter. So I'm just going to tap that glitter in, let it dry for about 45 minutes, and then I'll add a coat of epoxy right on top of that. I used Flynn Sisters Premium Epoxy, and my coat was about 25 milliliters. Once that was cured, I was ready to go in and add my vinyl striping. You guys already know I'm using my favorite vinyl Teckwrap Craft Champagne Gold Metallic vinyl for the striping. I'm going to apply that to each half of my tumbler, and then we'll move into finishing off the bottom. I'm going to take some electrical tape and tape it as close to the bottom edge of our cup as I can, and then we will paint and glitter it, of course. I'm mixing a little bit of this kind of like seafoam light green acrylic paint with my Crystalac glitter glue as the adhesive and base coat for my glitter for the bottom. The glitter we're using is Mojito from Peachy Olive Glitters. It's a little bit of a chunkier cut, so you just want to be careful that it's all laying flat and isn't, you know, going to give you a whole lot of trouble in your last sanding step before your final coat of epoxy. If you wanted to use a finer cut of glitter, another option would be 10, 12, 13 from Peachy Olive Glitters. It's got kind of the same tone, but it's a fine cut and probably won't give you any issues on the bottom. So once I'm done glittering the bottom of the cup, I'm going to let it dry for at least 2 hours, brush off any excess, remove my tape, seal my glitter with a coat of clear spray from Rust-Oleum, and then I'll move into my final 2 coats of epoxy. Again, of course, I'm using the Flynn Sisters Premium Epoxy, and each of my final coats was about 20-ish milliliters. I did sand everything down before that final coat. So once the final coat is all cured, we are all finished. So here is the completed tumbler. Look at the freaking shine of this epoxy. Oh my goodness, it's so perfect. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this tumbler design and this tutorial. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already so you don't miss any of my new videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, love you. Bye.